5 years, I murmured to myself, smoothing the fabric of my skirt. The gold letters of Lumina Designs shone on the wall behind the reception desk. I held the chilled champagne bottle tighter against my chest. Happy anniversary to us. I pushed open the heavy glass door to the executive suite. The lights were dimmed, which was strange for a Tuesday. I walked straight to the large oak double doors at the end of the hall. Derek's office. Surprise, I stopped. Derek wasn't sitting at his desk working on the quarterly reports. He was standing by a stack of cardboard boxes. His shelves were bare, stripped of the awards we had won together. And he wasn't alone. Vanessa, his assistant, my assistant, really was perched on the edge of his mahogany desk, swinging her legs. She was holding a silver stapler like it was a toy. "You're packing?" I asked, my voice coming out small and confused. "Are we painting the office?" Vanessa giggled. It was a sharp, cruel sound that bounced off the glass walls. Derek didn't look up. He just taped a box shut. Rip. Stick. "Derek?" I stepped forward, the champagne bottle feeling heavy and stupid in my hands. What is going on? Finally, he looked at me. His eyes were flat, devoid of the warmth I had seen this morning over coffee. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. He held it out to me. "Take it," he said. I set the champagne down on a side table with a clink. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. I didn't sign this," I stammered. I looked up at him, panic rising in my chest. "I never signed this. This is a forgery." "It's a necessary step," Derek said calmly. He walked over and stood next to Vanessa. She rested her hand on his shoulder, a gesture so intimate and possessive it made my stomach churn. "You forged my signature?" I screamed. "That is illegal." "It's business," Vanessa said, checking her perfectly manicured nails. "And it's done. The transfer cleared this morning. $8 million. Where's the money?" I demanded, stepping toward them. "That is the company account's money. We have payroll next week." Derek laughed, a cold, dry sound. "Not anymore. It's in an offshore account, under my name and Vanessa's." My knees felt weak. The room spun. "Why? I built this." "I built this for us. For our future." "You built it," Derek sneered, his face twisting with contempt. "But you are too emotional to keep it." "We are going to Paris," Vanessa added, hopping off the desk and linking her arm through his. "Tonight, first class. You can keep the office supplies. I'm calling the police." I grabbed my phone from my purse. Derek shook his head. "I wouldn't do that. Who are they going to believe? The hysterical wife who just lost her business, or the partner with the signed documents?" He pressed the intercom button on his desk. "Security to the CEO's office." "We have a trespasser." "Trespasser?" I choked out. "I am the CEO." 2 large men in uniforms walked in. I recognized them. I had hired them. I had given them Christmas bonuses. "Mike? John? What are you doing?" "Sorry, ma'am," Mike said, looking at the floor. "You have to leave." "Derek, stop this." I grabbed his arm, desperation clawing at my throat. He shook me off like I was dirt. "Get her out of here. She's making a scene. See? Too emotional." Mike grabbed my elbow. "Come on, man. Don't make it harder." "No, you can't do this. This is my life." I screamed, trashing against his grip. Vanessa waved her fingers at me, a wicked smile on her red lips. "Bye, Maya. Thanks for the bonus." I was dragged through the hallway. My employees, my friends, stared at me from their cubicles. They looked confused, scared. I wanted to tell them it was a lie, that I wasn't crazy, but I was being shoved through the lobby. The glass doors opened, and I was pushed out onto the concrete sidewalk. The cool evening air hit my face like a slap. "Don't come back, ma'am," Mike said, his voice softer now, but he locked the door behind him. I stood there, shivering. My purse is on my shoulder, but my keys, my laptop, my portfolio, it was all inside. I looked through the glass. Derek and Vanessa were walking toward the elevator, laughing. I reached for the door handle, but it didn't budge. I pounded on the glass. "Derek, open the door." He didn't turn around. I checked my phone. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I opened my banking app. Access denied. I stared at the screen until it went black. The champagne bottle was still inside on the table unopened, just like the rest of my future. I was alone, declined. The cashier at the convenience store didn't even look at me. He just held out my platinum credit card like it was a piece of trash. "Can you try it again?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Please, it's just a bottle of water." "Lady, the machine says no," he snapped, dropping the card onto the counter. "Move along." I grabbed the useless piece of plastic and stumbled out into the street. It had been 3 days. 3 days of sleeping in my car until the repo man took it this morning. He had erased my existence. Rain began to fall, mixing with the grime on my face. I wrapped my arms around myself. My designer dress, once worth $2,000, was torn at the hem and stained with mud. I looked down at my shoes. One heel had snapped off yesterday. "I have nowhere to go," I said to the wet pavement. Then a memory surfaced, a peeling blue door, the smell of old spices. Aunt Clara. I walked for 2 hours. I raised a trembling hand and knocked. Knock, 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 knock. Steps approached. The peephole slid open, then the door swung wide. Maya? Aunt Clara stood there in a worn floral housecoat. Her gray hair was messy, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at my wet hair, my broken shoe, my shaking hands. "Oh, honey," she breathed. I didn't know where else ... "Get in here," she commanded, pulling me inside. "Before you catch your death." The apartment was tiny. It smelled of boiled cabbage and lemon cleaner. It was a far cry from my penthouse, but it was warm. Clara sat me down on her lumpy sofa and disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, she returned with a steaming bowl of tomato soup and a blanket. "Eat," she said, wrapping the wool around my shoulders. "Don't talk, just eat." I took a spoonful. The warmth hit my stomach, and suddenly, the dam broke. I dropped the spoon and buried my face in my hands. "He took it all, Auntie," I sobbed, the words tearing out of my throat. "Everything. The company, the house, my savings." Clara sat beside me and rubbed my back. "That man always had eyes like a shark. I told your mother that at the wedding." "I was so stupid," I cried, rocking back and forth. "I trusted him. He handed me papers and I didn't even read them. Who does that? Who is that distinctively dumb?" "A woman in love," Clara said softly. "Love makes us blind, Maya. It doesn't make us stupid." "They're laughing at me." "Let them laugh," Clara said firmly. "Look at me. I'm a charity case." "You are my niece," she said, lifting my chin so I had to look at her, "and you are safe." 20 minutes later, I stood in the small tiled bathroom. The mirror was cracked down the middle, splitting my reflection in two. Mascara ran down my cheeks in black rivers. My eyes were swollen and red. My skin was pale. I looked broken. I looked like a victim. "Is this who you are?" I looked back at the mirror. The cracks still split my face, but my eyes were different now. The sadness was hardening into something else. I grabbed a rough towel and dried my face. "Crying is over," I vowed. "Now I need a plan." "I'm sorry, Miss Vance, but the position has been filled." I stared at the receptionist. "I called an hour ago. You said you were desperate for a senior designer." She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, glancing at a printed email on her desk. "That was before Mr. Jacobs saw the memo." "What memo?" I demanded, leaning over the counter. She hesitated, then sighed, sliding the paper toward me. "Your husband's sorry. Your ex-partner sent this to every major firm in the city this morning." I read the text, my stomach dropping. It was a formal notice from Lumina Designs claiming that I had been terminated due to severe psychological instability and an ongoing investigation into embezzled funds. "This is a lie," I whispered, looking up at her. "He stole the company from me. I built Lumina." "Look," she said, pulling the paper back. "I believe you. You look sane to me, but in this industry, no one touches a liability. You're blacklisted, Maya. You need to leave." Security escorted me out of the last one. I took the bus back to the south side. As I approached Aunt Clara's apartment, I heard shouting through the thin walls of the hallway. "I don't care about your sob stories, Clara. I run a business, not a shelter." I froze outside the door. It was Mr. Henderson, the landlord. "Please, Mr. Henderson," Aunt Clara's voice trembled. "I just need a few more days. My pension check is late." He yelled, "And now I see some young woman crashing on your couch? If you can feed an extra mouth, you can pay your rent. Friday, cash, or I'd put your stuff on the curb." The door flew open. Mr. Henderson stormed out, almost knocking me over. He sneered at me and stomped down the stairs. I walked inside. Aunt Clara was sitting at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. She looked up and tried to smile, but her eyes were wet. "How was the job hunt, honey?" she asked, her voice shaking. "It was complicated," I lied. I couldn't tell her I was radioactive. I couldn't tell her that her kindness was going to get her evicted. "I'm going to go for a walk." I walked 2 blocks to a place with a flickering neon sign. Joe's Greasy Spoon. A help wanted sign hung crookily in the window. I walked in. The smell of stale fry oil hit me instantly. "I need a job," I told the man behind the counter. He was sweating and yelling orders at the cook. He looked me up and down. "You ever washed a dish?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm fast." Dish pit is in the back. Aprons on the hook. Min wage. Cash under the table. 10 minutes later, I was elbow deep in gray lukewarm water. My hands, which used to sketch million-dollar concepts, were scrubbing dried egg off cheap ceramic. My back ached. The steam ruined my hair. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I scrubbed it harder. "Hey, watch it." I had stepped out to grab a bus tub and bumped into a customer. "I'm so sorry," I stammered. "You got ketchup on my shirt." The man yelled, standing up. "Are you stupid? Look at what you did." I shrank back. I'll get a rag." "Hey, back off." A sharp voice cut through the noise. A waitress with messy bun and tired eyes stepped between us. She glared at the man. She said she was sorry. "Sit down, Dave. It's a diner, not the Ritz. You spill more on yourself than that every day." The man grumbled and sat back down. The waitress turned to me. "You okay? You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine," I lied, wiping my hands on my dirty apron. "Thank you." "I'm Sarah," she said, handing me a clean rag. "Don't let Dave get to you. He tips in quarters." Later, during a lull, Sarah found me sitting on a milk crate by the back door, staring at my raw red hands. She handed me a mug of coffee. "Rough first day?" she asked, sitting on the crate next to me. "You could say that." I took the coffee. It was bitter but hot. "My name is Maya." "Nice to meet you, Maya. You don't look like a dishwasher." I wasn't. "A week ago, I was a CEO." Sarah laughed, then stopped when she saw my face. "Wait, you're serious?" "Dead serious." "Now I'm scrubbing plates to help my aunt pay rent." Sarah nodded slowly. She didn't mock me. She bumped her shoulder against mine. I looked at her. For the first time in years, I wasn't talking to someone who wanted a promotion or a favor. "Yeah," I smiled weakly. "It kicks hard." "Well," Sarah raised her mug. "We kick back, drink up. The dinner rush is coming." The rain hammered against the diner window, blurring the neon sign of the pawn shop across the street. It was a slow Tuesday night. I wiped on the counter, the smell of bleach stinging my nose. "Table 4 needs a refill," Sarah whispered as she breezed past me with a tray of dirty dishes. "And watch out." "He's grumpy." I looked over. He was pinching the bridge of his nose, his other hand gripping a smartphone. "I don't care what the focus group said, David." He snapped into the phone. "It's sterile. It looks like a bank logo, not a boutique hotel. It lacks ... soul." I recognized that voice. I had read about him in Forbes. He was a venture capitalist known for taking risks on impossible projects. He slammed the phone down on the table next to his tablet. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I took a breath and walked over. "Coffee?" "Black. Keep it coming," he muttered without looking up. I poured the dark liquid into his mug. My eyes drifted to his tablet screen. It displayed a logo for something called the Azure. It was a sharp, jagged triangle in bright blue. "It's too aggressive," I murmured before I could stop myself. Ethan stopped rubbing his temples. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. "Excuse me?" I gripped the coffee pot tighter. "The angles. They're sharp. If the Azure is a resort, you won't flow. You want relaxation. That triangle screams danger." For a second, I thought he was going to yell at me like the man with the ketchup stain. Instead, he leaned back. "You're a waitress," he said flatly. "I'm a dishwasher, actually. I'm just covering a break." "Well, dishwasher," he gestured to the screen. "My high-paid design firm says this is modern. You say it's dangerous." "It is," I said. My heart was pounding, but my hands were itching. The old instinct was waking up. "Do you have a pen?" He raised an eyebrow but pulled a silver Mont Blanc from his jacket pocket. I took it. It felt heavy and expensive familiar. I grabbed a paper napkin from the dispenser. May I asked. He waved his hand. Be my guest. It's not like it can get worse. I uncapped the pen. I didn't think. I just felt. I drew a curve, mimicking the line of a wave, but softened it so it looked like a closing eyelid rest and water combined. I added a serif font, but extended the tails of the letters to mimic the wave. It took me 30 seconds. I capped the pen and slid the napkin across the table. There, I said. Flow, soul. I dropped the pen next to his hand and walked away quickly, my pulse racing. I went back behind the counter and started scrubbing a stain that wasn't there. What did I just do? I'm going to get fired. 10 minutes passed. I refused to look at table 4. Miss? I jumped. Ethan was standing at the counter. He was holding the napkin. I'm sorry, I stammered. I shouldn't have. Who are you? He interrupted. His voice wasn't angry. It was intense. I looked down at the counter. Just Maya. Who are you? I looked up. I was tired of hiding. My name is Maya Vance. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Vance, the CEO of Lumina Designs? The one who had a mental breakdown and embezzled millions? The one who was framed, I corrected, my voice hard. And the one who built Lumina from a garage into an empire before it was stolen. He studied my face, looking for the lie. He looked at my stained apron, my messy hair, and then back at the napkin. People say you're toxic, he said. That you lost your touch. People lie, I replied. Does that sketch look like I lost my touch? He looked at the napkin again. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. No, it looks like the best thing I've seen in 3 months. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. He slid it across the counter. I need a full branding package for the Azure, he said. Logo, font hierarchy, color palette. The firm I hired is fired. I stared at the card. I don't have a computer. I don't have software. Figure it out, Ethan said, turning to leave. If you really are Maya Vance, you don't need fancy tools. You just need your brain. He stopped at the door and looked back. I need it by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. If it's good, I'll pay you $5,000. If it's bad, you go back to washing dishes. And if I can't make the deadline? I asked. Then you prove them right, he said, and walked out into the rain. I stared at the card. 8 a.m. That was 12 hours away. I untied my apron and threw it in the bin. Sarah, I'm taking my break. Come on, I hissed at the screen. Do not crash, not now. The spinning wheel of death froze on Sarah's ancient laptop. It sounded like a jet engine trying to take off. I sat cross-legged on the floor of Aunt Clara's living room, surrounded by crumpled sketches and empty mugs of instant coffee. It's 3 a.m, Maya, Aunt Clara whispered, shuffling out of her bedroom. She pulled her robe tighter. You need to sleep. I can't, I said, hitting save for the 10th time in a minute. I have 5 hours to rebuild my entire career on a computer that runs on coal. Is it worth it? The pixelated logo of the Azure stared back. Every time my eyes blurred from exhaustion, I saw Vanessa's smirk. I saw Derek signing the papers. It's not just a logo, Auntie, I said, my voice tight. It's a lifeline. If I pull this off, we pay the rent. I worked through the sunrise. My fingers ached. My eyes burned. But as the sun hit the peeling wallpaper, I exported the final file. At 7:55 a.m., I walked into the glass lobby of Blackwood Ventures. I was wearing my same suit, cleaned as best as I could in a laundromat sink, and my hair was pulled back into a severe bun to hide the grease. Maya Vance to see Ethan Blackwood, I told the receptionist. A moment later, a young woman with glasses and a tablet hurried out. She looked terrified. I'm Sophie, she whispered, barely making eye contact. Mr. Blackwood is waiting. He hates lateness. I'm 5 minutes early, I said, gripping the USB drive in my pocket. Sophie led me into a massive corner office. Ivan was standing by the window, looking out at the city. He turned as we entered. You look terrible, he said bluntly. I feel terrible, I replied, pulling out the laptop. But the work isn't. I set the laptop on his desk. It groaned as it woke up. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Is that ... duct tape on the hinge? Focus on the screen, I said. I opened the file. The branding package for the Azure filled the display. The soft curves, the calming blues, the elegant typography, it was sophisticated, inviting, and soulful. It was everything the jagged triangle wasn't. Silence filled the room. Ethan leaned in, scrolling through the mock-ups. He didn't say a word. The silence stretched until I felt sick. "Oh," Sophie breathed. We both looked at her. She covered her mouth, blushing. "I'm sorry," she squeaked. It's beautiful. I've never seen a brand feel so calm." Ethan glanced at his assistant, then back at me. His face was unreadable. "Sophie," he said. "Cut a check for $5,000. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "So it's acceptable?" "Acceptable?" Ethan scoffed. He walked around the desk and leaned against the edge, crossing his arms. "It's excellent. It makes the previous agency look like kindergartners." Sophie handed him a checkbook. He signed it with a flourish and ripped it out, sliding it across the polished wood. My hands were shaking. "Thank you. I should go." "Sit down, Maya," Ethan commanded. I froze. "I finished the job." "You finished the test," he corrected. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and calculating. "You have talent, that's obvious. But I saw the fire in your eyes at the diner. You don't just want money, you want blood." I stiffened. "I don't know what you mean." "Lumina Designs," he said. "They just released their quarterly projection. It's weak. Derek is coasting on your old work. But he has no vision. That's not my problem anymore, isn't it?" Ethan smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was a shark smile. "I don't want to just hire you for a logo, Maya. I have capital. You have the genius. I want to invest in you." "To do what?" I asked. "To launch a new firm," Ethan said, leaning forward. "A shadow firm. We build it quietly. We target Lumina's clients. And piece by piece, we take everything Derek stole from you." I looked at the check in my hand. Then I looked at Ethan. "When do we start?" I asked. Snip. A lock of long, dark hair fell to the tiled floor of the salon. I watched it land, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. "Are you sure about this?" the stylist asked, holding the scissors hesitant near my ear. "It's a big change. You have such beautiful length." "I'm not the same person who grew that hair," I said, staring at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked sharper, harder. "Cut it all off. I need to be aerodynamic." An hour later, I walked into the abandoned textile warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. The sign on the door was blank, just a piece of gray tape over the peephole. I punched in the code and the heavy metal door slid open. Inside, the air hummed with the sound of servers and 3D printers. It didn't look like a luxury design firm. It looked like a war room. "Mind the cables," Sarah yelled from across the room. She was wearing a headset and holding a clipboard, directing 2 livery men carrying a massive crate. I smiled. 6 months ago, she was afraid to tell a customer he had ketchup on his shirt. Now she was my office manager and she ran Phoenix Co. with an iron fist. "You're late," Sarah said, walking over to me. She stopped and her eyes went wide. "Whoa, the hair. Too much?" She stopped and her eyes went wet. I asked, touching the back of my neck. "No," she grinned. "It's fierce. You look like you're about to assassinate someone." "In a way I am," I replied, walking toward the large table in the center of the room covered in blueprints. "How is the installation going?" "The prototypes are printing now," Sarah said, flipping a page on her clipboard. "And Ethan is in the glass conference pod. He's been pacing for 20 minutes. I walked into the small glass-walled office we had built in the corner. Ethan was on his phone, looking intense. He hung up as soon as I entered. "We have a problem," he said without a greeting. "Good morning to you too, Ethan," I said, dropping my bag. "What is it?" "Did the supplier back out?" "No, the supplier is fine. It's Lumina." I froze. "What about them?" Ethan turned his tablet around and slid it across the table. "Look at this." It was a live news feed. The headline read, "Lumina Designs stock plummets 15% after disastrous Vortex launch." I picked up the tablet. On the screen, there was a picture of a chair. It was a twisted, uncomfortable-looking thing made of neon plastic. "I remember this," I whispered. "I drew this on a napkin 3 years ago as a joke. I called it the spinal injury chair." I threw the sketch in the trash. "Well, Derek fished it out," Ethan said, leaning back in his chair. "Critics are tearing it apart. They're saying Lumina has lost its elegance. They're calling it cheap and derivative." He's running out of my old files, I said, a dark satisfaction curling in my gut. He doesn't know how to create. He's just scavenging. Exactly, Ethan said. He is bleeding cash. Investors are panicking, which means ... Which means now is the time to strike, I finished for him. We launch Phoenix in 2 weeks, Ethan said. But we need to be careful. If he knows it's you, he will try to sue you for non-compete clauses, even if they are bogus. Let him try, I said. My name isn't on the paperwork. Yours is. As far as the world knows, I'm just a broken ex-wife working a minimum wage job. By the time he realizes I'm the architect of his destruction, he won't be able to afford a lawyer. Sarah knocked on the glass and poked her head in. Maya? The first print is done. You need to see it. I looked at Ethan. He nodded. Go, he said. Build the future. I walked back out onto the factory floor. Sarah handed me a sleek, matte black object. It was a smart lamp, the flagship product of Phoenix Co. It was elegant, innovative, and completely original. I ran my thumb over the smooth surface. It's perfect, Sarah whispered. It's better than perfect, I said, looking at the news report still playing on a monitor in the corner, showing Derek trying to dodge paparazzi. It's a weapon. I turned to my team, my voice echoing in the large space. Pack it up, I ordered. We are ready. Ready? Ethan asked, holding out his arm. I smoothed the silk of my crimson gown. I took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. The double doors to the grand ballroom opened. The flashbulbs blinded me for a second, popping like tiny lightning storms. The room was a sea of black tuxedos and glittering jewelry. It smelled of expensive perfume and money. He's here, Ethan whispered, leaning close to my ear. 3 o'clock. Near the ice sculpture. I didn't turn immediately. I took a champagne flute from a passing waiter and took a slow, deliberate sip. Then I looked. Derek was standing there. He looked ... gray. His suit was expensive, but it hung loosely on his frame as if he had lost weight rapidly. He was sweating. Vanessa was beside him, clutching his arm like a lifeline. She was scowling at a waiter, looking miserable. They look tired, I said softly. Guilt does that, Ethan replied. Or bankruptcy. Go on, Maya. This is your stage now. I walked straight toward them. My heels clicked rhythmically on the marble floor. The sound was sharp and strong. Derek turned. His eyes widened when they landed on me. The crystal glass in his hand slipped from his fingers. Crash. Champagne soaked his polished shoes. The chatter nearby stopped instantly. Maya? He choked out. Hello, Derek, I said, my voice steady. Vanessa, you look ... stressed. What are you doing here? Derek hissed, stepping over the broken glass to get in my face. He lowered his voice, trying to be intimidating. This is an industry event. It's for professionals. Did you sneak in? Are you catering? I laughed. It was a genuine, amused sound that seemed to confuse him. A caterer? You really haven't been paying attention. Security. Derek waved a hand frantically at a guard near the wall. I want this woman removed. She's trespassing. I wouldn't do that, Vance, a booming voice interrupted. A tall man with silver hair and a charismatic smile stepped between us. It was Marcus Sterling, the CEO of Sterling & Co., the biggest design firm on the West Coast. He was a man Derek had been trying to get a meeting with for 5 years. He turned his back on Derek and extended a hand to me. Maya Vance, Marcus said warmly. I have been dying to meet you. The rumors about the shadow line are driving my design team crazy. We need to talk collaboration. I shook his hand firmly. It's a pleasure, Marcus. I think Phoenix Co. and Sterling could do great things together. Phoenix? Derek whispered. The color drained from his face. What is Phoenix? You haven't heard? I looked at him with mock pity. It's the company that just stole your biggest contract with the Azure hotel chain. Vanessa stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. She looked me up and down, sneering at my dress. Phoenix? She scoffed. Sounds cheap, just like that dress. Did you sew it yourself out of old curtains? The circle of people around us went quiet. Marcus looked offended, but I held up a hand to stop him from speaking. It's the prototype for Phoenix Co.'s new luxury textile line. We launch next month. It's stunning. A woman from Vogue chimed in from the crowd, snapping a photo. Absolutely bold. Wait, Derek said, his voice trembling. He looked from Marcus to me, finally connecting the dots. You own Phoenix Co., but how? You had nothing. I had nothing because you took it, I said, stepping closer until I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. But you forgot one thing, Derek. You took the money. You took the building, but you couldn't take the talent. Maya, please, he whispered, looking around at the people whispering and pointing. Not here. Let's talk privately. We can work something out. I don't have anything to say to you, I said coldly. And Marcus and I have business to discuss. I turned back to Marcus. Shall we get a table? After you, CEO, Marcus grinned, offering me his arm. I walked away, the red silk trailing behind me like a flag of victory. Behind me, I heard Vanessa hissing at Derek and the crunch of broken glass under his feet. I didn't look back, but I felt Derek's gaze burning into my back. He wasn't just angry anymore, he was terrified. 3 more clients left Lumina today, Ethan said, tapping his tablet screen with a satisfied grin. Derek is bleeding out. He called my office 5 times trying to threaten me with a lawsuit. Let him call, I said, organizing the final spec sheets on my desk. He has no case. We built everything from scratch. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Sarah. I smiled and swiped to answer. Hey Sarah, is the prototype packed for the launch? Maya ... Her voice was a broken sob. You need to come. Now my stomach dropped. What happened? Is everyone okay? Just come, she cried. It's gone. It's all gone. I drove to the warehouse doing 80 miles an hour. When I sprinted through the metal doors, the silence hit me first. Usually the shop floor was loud with drills and music. Now my team of 6 engineers stood in a circle, looking at the ground. Sarah ran to me, her face streaked with tears. She pointed to the center table. I went to the bathroom for 5 minutes, she choked out. I locked the front door, but they came in through the loading bay. I heard the crash and ran back, but they were already gone. I walked to the table. Our flagship smart lamp, the result of 6 months of sleepless nights, was shattered. The delicate glass housing was dust. The circuit board had been stomped on. Someone had taken a hammer to the base. It's over, one of the engineers, Mike whispered. The launch is in 48 hours. We can't print a new housing in time. The machine is jammed too. They poured glue in it. I stared at the pile of plastic and glass. I felt cold. This wasn't a robbery. Nothing was stolen. This was hate. He did this, I said, my voice shaking. He knows he can't beat us, so he broke us. We called the police, Sarah said, pulling out her phone. Right now? Wait, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a text message. It was from a number I didn't save. Check your email. You deserve to know. Who is that? Sarah asked, seeing my frown. I don't know. I opened my email app. A new message sat at the top with a video attachment. The subject line was just Karma. I clicked play. The video was grainy black and white security footage. It showed the back alley of the Lumina Designs building. A man in a dark hoodie was standing there. A moment later, Derek walked into the frame. I gasped. Look at this. Sarah huddled close. Is that Derek? It's him, I said. Look at the time stamp. Yesterday afternoon. On the screen, Derek looked around nervously, then handed the man in the hoodie a thick white envelope. He pointed aggressively at something off-screen, then mimed a smashing motion with his fist. The man nodded and shoved the envelope into his pocket. The email had text below the video. He bragged about crushing the competition in the break room. He treats us like garbage. He fired the cleaning lady yesterday because he was in a bad mood. I can't watch him ruin your work again. Burn him, Liam. Liam, I whispered. He was my junior designer. He's still there. Oh my God, Sarah breathed, her eyes wide. We have him. Maya, this is a felony. Breaking and entering? Conspiracy? We call the cops and he goes to jail tonight. I watched the video again. I saw the fear in Derek's body language. He wasn't a mastermind. He was a desperate, cornered rat. No, I said, locking my phone. No, Mike asked, stepping forward. Maya, look at the table. He destroyed our work. If I call the police now, he gets arrested quietly, I said, my voice hardening. He makes bail. He spins a story. He delays the trial. So what do we do? Sarah wiped her eyes. We give up. No, I turned to the team. We don't give up. And we don't call the police, not yet. I looked at the shattered lamp, then up at Mike. Can we fix the printer? Mike blinked. Maybe if we strip the nozzle, but it will take all night. Then we stay all night, I commanded. We rebuild. We launch on schedule. And the video? Sarah asked. We keep it, I said, feeling a cold, sharp anger settle in my chest. Derek wanted to stop the launch. He failed. He thinks he's safe. He thinks he won. I grabbed a broom and started sweeping the glass. I'm going to let him think that, I said. And then, when the whole world is watching, I'm going to show them exactly who Derek Vance really is. Grab your tools, I yelled to the room. We have work to do. 5 minutes to curtain, Sarah said, adjusting my microphone pack. Her hands were shaking more than mine. The room is at capacity. Fire marshals are turning people away at the door. And Derek? I asked, looking at Ethan. Ethan checked his phone and laughed. I have a contact at his venue. There are 3 people there. 2 of them are waiters. He's dead in the water, I said, smoothing my dress. He just doesn't know it yet. Go get him, Ethan said, squeezing my shoulder. This is your moment. I walked out onto the stage. The roar of the crowd hit me like a physical wave. Camera flashes popped like strobe lights. I stood in the center of the spotlight, waiting for the applause to die down. Thank you, I said, my voice echoing through the massive hall. 6 months ago, I was told I was too emotional to lead. I was told I had lost my touch. Today, I present to you not just a product, but a promise. I gestured to the pedestal beside me. The black silk cloth slid off, revealing the phoenix lamp. It glowed with a warm, impossible light, the design curved and organic. Beautiful. Someone shouted from the front row. This is the future of design, I continued, making eye contact with the investors in the front. But building the future isn't easy when the past tries to burn it down. I paused. The room went quiet. I gripped the remote clicker in my hand. I want to show you all something. We talk about competition in this industry. But what happens when competition becomes a crime? I clicked the button. The giant screen behind me shifted. The elegant logo of Phoenix Co. disappeared, replaced by the grainy black and white footage Liam had sent me. The silence in the room was heavy, confused. Then as the image cleared, I heard the murmurs begin. Is that? A reporter in the front row stood up, squinting. On the screen, giant and undeniable, Derek handed the envelope to the thug. He made the smashing motion with his fist. The time stamp was clearly visible. That looks like Derek Vance, someone whispered loudly. It is Derek Vance, I said into the microphone, my voice cutting through the confusion like a knife. This video was taken 48 hours ago behind the Lumina building. The crowd gasped. Phones were raised instantly, live streaming the screen. He paid a man to break into my warehouse, I narrated as the video played on a loop. He paid him to destroy the prototypes you see here tonight. He tried to silence us because he knew he couldn't outdesign us. Oh my God, Sarah whispered from the wings, her voice caught on the stage mic. This isn't just a rivalry, I declared, staring directly into the main camera lens. This is a felony, Ms. Vance. A reporter from the Times shouted, waving a hand frantically. Are you pressing charges? My lawyers are filing the paperwork as we speak, I answered, my voice calm and deadly. Not just for the break-in, but for the forgery of my signature on the sale of Lumina Designs. I am suing Derek Vance for everything he stole. I'm taking back my name, the room erupted. It was absolute chaos. Reporters were shouting questions, flashbulbs were blinding, and the live stream comments on the side monitors were scrolling so fast they were a blur of anger and shock. Hashtag Justice for Maya was already trending. Derek's pixelated face looked small and pathetic. Enjoy the lamp, everyone, I said and walked off stage. Ethan met me behind the curtain. He wasn't smiling, he looked in awe. You didn't just beat him, he said over the noise of the crowd. You vaporized him. I told you, I unclipped my microphone and handed it to a stunned Sarah. I wasn't building a company. I was building a weapon. I cut the engine of my rental car, parking 3 houses down from the mansion, my old mansion. The sprawling estate looked exactly as I had left it, except now the driveway was filled with flashing red and blue lights. They're here, I whispered to the steering wheel. I rolled down the window just enough to hear the chaos. 2 uniformed officers were marching Derek out of the front door. He wasn't wearing his tailored suits today. He was in sweatpants, looking disheveled and small. "Get your hands off me," Derek screamed, twisting his shoulders. "Do you know who I am? I'm a CEO. This is harassment." A tall man in a trench coat, Detective Miller, stepped into the light of the porch. He looked unimpressed. "We know exactly who you are, Mr. Vance," Miller said, his voice carrying over the crisp morning air. "You're the man who wired $8 million of stolen funds into a shell corporation. That's a lie." Derek shouted, his face turning purple. "Maya set me up. She's the one you want. Check the accounts." "We did check them," Miller replied calmly, holding up a plastic evidence bag containing a hard drive. "Our forensic accountants have been up all night. The digital trail doesn't lie, Derek. Every cent is traced back to your IP address. It wasn't me." Derek's voice cracked, shifting from anger to panic. "It was Vanessa. She handles the finances. She told me it was legal." "You coward." Vanessa was being led out by a female officer. She was wearing a silk robe, her makeup smeared. She thrashed against the handcuffs. "I was just an assistant. I did what I was told." Miller turned to her, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Save it for the judge, Miss Tate. We received a very interesting data dump from a Mr. Liam waiting at the station." "He provided the email threads," Vanessa froze. "What emails?" "The ones where you practiced Mrs. Vance's signature," Miller said, reading from the paper. Subject line: "Practice makes perfect. You attached the scanned forgeries yourself. You were the mastermind behind the fraud." "No," Vanessa shrieked, her legs giving out. The officer had to hold her up. "Derek promised we would go to Paris. He promised." "The only place you're going is a holding cell," Miller said, signaling the officers. "Book them. Fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage." I watched as they were shoved into the back of separate squad cars. Derek looked out the window, his eyes scanning the street. For a split second, our gazes locked. He stopped screaming. He just slumped against the glass, defeated. I didn't feel the rush of joy I expected. I felt a strange hollowness, like a heavy weight had simply vanished, leaving empty space behind. "It's over," I said. I started the car and drove away before the neighbors could spot me. 20 minutes later, I walked up the stairs to Aunt Clara's apartment. The hallway still smelled of old cooking oil, but today it didn't bother me. I unlocked the door. Clara was sitting at the table, counting out change for the laundry machine. She looked up, startled. "Maya, you're back early. Did something happen?" I walked over and sat opposite her. I placed a thick manila envelope on top of her pile of coins. "It's done, Auntie," I said softly. "Derek is in jail, Vanessa too." Clara put her hand over her mouth. "Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay." I pushed the envelope toward her. "Open it." She looked at me suspiciously, wiping her hands on her apron. "What is this? Legal papers?" "Just open it." She undid the clasp and pulled out the document. Her eyes scanned the page, squinting at the fine print. Then she stopped. Her mouth fell open. "A deed?" she whispered. "Maya. What is a Rosewood Cottage?" "It's 2 hours north," I explained, leaning forward to take her hand. "It has 2 bedrooms, a porch, and a garden big enough for all your vegetables. And it's fully paid for. It's yours." Clara dropped the paper. Tears immediately welled in her eyes. No, I can't take this. This is too much money." "You took me in when I was nothing," I said, my voice trembling. "You fed me when I had no money. You reminded me who I was when I wanted to give up. This isn't charity, Auntie. It's gratitude." "But a house?" She sobbed. "A home," I corrected. "For us. I'll come visit every weekend." Clara stood up and pulled me into a crushing hug. We stood in the tiny, cramping kitchen, crying into each other's shoulders. "You're a good girl, Maya," she whispered into my hair. "You always were." "I'm a strong girl," I replied, squeezing her back. Finally. "Visitor for inmate 8940, booth 4. The guard's voice was flat, bored. He buzzed the heavy steel door and it slid open with a jarring clank. The air inside the visitation room smelled of stale floor wax and despair. I walked to booth 4 and sat on the cold metal stool. I placed my hands on the counter, noticing how steady they were. 3 months ago, I couldn't hold a cup without shaking. Now my manicure was perfect, my pulse slow. On the other side of the thick glass, the door opened. Derek walked in. I almost didn't recognize him. The tailored Italian suits were gone, replaced by a baggy, bright orange jumpsuit. He slumped into the chair, picking up the black phone receiver. I picked up mine. Maya, he breathed. His voice was tinny through the speaker. You came. I knew you would come. I had to see it, I said calmly. See what? He leaned forward, his eyes darting around nervously. See me suffering? Is that what you want? To gloat? To see if you were real, I replied. For a long time, you were a monster in my head. Now, you're just a number in a cage. I'm not a number. He snapped, a flash of his old arrogance surfacing before crumbling instantly. Maya, you have to help me. This place ... I can't survive here. The food, the noise. I'm going crazy. You should have thought about that before you forged my signature, I said. It wasn't me. He slammed his hand against the glass. The guard behind him took a step forward and Derek flinched, lowering his hand. It was Vanessa. She manipulated me, Maya. She told me the company was failing. She said we had to secure assets. She twisted my head. You're 40 years old, Derek, I said, my voice cold. Vanessa didn't make you steal $8 million. She didn't make you throw me out on the street. I was confused. I was scared. He looked at me, his eyes filling with tears. I never stopped loving you. You know that, right? We were a team. The power couple. A team? I laughed softly. You locked me out of my own accounts. You tried to destroy my reputation. I was jealous. He admitted, his voice cracking. You were always the genius. I felt small, but I can fix it. Maya, listen to me. I have money hidden. Not the accounts they found cash. Buried. I can tell you where it is. Just drop the charges. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. You want to bribe me? I asked, tilting my head. With stolen money? Just get me out of here, please. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll disappear. We can go back to how it was before the business got in the way. I looked at him. I looked at the desperation etched into the lines of his face. I searched for any spark of the man I had married, the man I thought was my partner. There was nothing. Just a greedy, frightened child. I don't want your money, Derek, I said. I made my own. Phoenix Co. is worth triple what Lumina ever was. Then do it for love. He begged, pressing his forehead against the glass. I know you still love me. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. We belong together. You're mine, Maya. That word. Mine triggered the final lock in my chest. The last bit of weight lifted off my shoulders. I leaned forward, bringing my face close to the glass. That's your problem, Derek, I said softly, ensuring he heard every syllable. You didn't love me. You loved owning me. You loved having a trophy that made you money. Maya, no. But the trophy woke up, I continued, standing up. And now? You own nothing. You are nothing. I hung up the phone. Maya, wait, he screamed. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I saw his mouth moving, saw the panic in his eyes as he realized I was leaving. He started slamming the receiver against the glass. Don't walk away. Come back. I own you. You hear me? Come back. The guards grabbed him, hauling him backward. He kicked and screamed, his face twisted in ugly, impotent rage. I didn't stop. I turned my back on him and walked toward the heavy steel door. BZZCT. The door unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped out into the bright, blinding sunlight. The door slammed shut behind me with a final, heavy thud, sealing the past away forever. I took a deep breath of fresh air. It tasted like freedom. The wind at 70 floors up didn't smell like exhaust or garbage. It smelled like the ocean and expensive jasmine candles. I leaned against the glass railing of the balcony, watching the city sprawl out below me like a circuit board of gold and white lights. My phone buzzed on the patio table. I picked it up, expecting an email, but it was Sarah. You are supposed to be off the clock, I said, answering with a smile. I know, Sarah's voice chirped, sounding breathless, but the Asia-Pacific numbers just came in. Maya, we didn't just meet the projection, we doubled it. Doubled? I took a sip of my sparkling water. That puts us ahead of Sterling & Co. We are officially the #1 design firm in the country, Sarah squealed. I wanted to scream, but I'm the coup now, so I have to be professional. So I'm screaming at you instead. I laughed. Scream all you want, Sarah. You earned it. Now go home. You have a date tonight, don't you? I do, she giggled. Oh, before I go, your Aunt Clara called the office again. She couldn't reach her cell. Is she okay? I asked, a habit of worry flaring up instantly. She's fine. She's better than fine. She wanted to tell you she won the best squash ribbon at the county fair. She sounded so proud. She said she's saving the biggest one for you for Sunday dinner. Tell her I'll be there, I said, feeling a warm ache in my chest. And Sarah? Thank you. For the report? For believing in the dishwasher, I said softly. Best decision I ever made, she replied. Night, boss. I hung up and set the phone down. I looked back at the city. A year ago, I was sleeping in a car down there in the dark. Now I own the sky. The glass door behind me slid open. I didn't turn around. I knew the cadence of those footsteps. Red or white? Ethan asked. White, I said. It's a celebration, apparently. He walked up beside me and handed me a crystal glass of vintage Chardonnay. He wasn't wearing his usual armor, the sharp suits and ties. I heard Sarah screaming from the hallway. He joked, clinking his glass against mine. We took the top spot? We took the top spot, I confirmed. Phoenix Co. is king. Queen, he corrected, looking at me. Are you upset? I asked, turning to face him. Blackwood Ventures owns 40%. You're rich. I was already rich, Maya, he said, stepping closer. Money is just a score. This, watching you build something from ashes? That was the real return on investment. I couldn't have done it without you, I admitted. You gave me the pen when I didn't even have a napkin. You had the talent, he said, reaching out to tuck a strand of my short hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek. I just turned on the light. My heart did a slow, heavy thud. For months we had danced around this. We were partners. We were allies in a war against Derek. But the war was over. The peace was here. What happens now? No more enemies. Now? Ethan smiled and his eyes crinkled at the corners. Now we live, we travel, we drink good wine. Maybe we actually take a weekend off. I don't know if I know how to do that, I confessed. I've been running on adrenaline and revenge for so long. I'll teach you, he murmured. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't pull away. I leaned in. His lips met mine, gentle, steady, and patient. It wasn't the frantic, possessive love I had with Derek. It was a partnership. It was respect set on fire. When we pulled apart, I felt dizzy, but my feet were firmly on the ground. Are you okay? He asked softly, searching my face. I looked past him out at the skyline. I saw the reflection of the penthouse in the glass. I saw a woman who stood tall, who owned her name, her company, and her heart. I'm more than okay, I said, gripping his hand. I thought about the tears in the bathroom mirror. I thought about the rain. I thought about the fire that had burned my old life to the ground. I used to hate that fire. But standing here, holding the hand of a man who actually saw me, I realized something. The fire hadn't killed me, it had forged me. I'm finally free, I said. Ethan squeezed my hand. Yes, you are. We stood there in the silence, watching the city shine, ready for whatever came next.